Welcome back, where we look beyond the polished image of the crown and into the tensions, strategies, and private currents that shape life inside the royal household. Because today's story is not built around a dramatic press release or a headline-making proclamation. It is something more subtle and perhaps more revealing. It is a story told through quiet decisions, shifting roles, and the kind of silence that often says more than words ever could. At the center of this unfolding drama are three figures: King Charles, Queen Camilla, and Catherine, Princess of Wales. And if even a fraction of the whispers coming from inside royal circles are accurate, then what is happening behind palace walls could alter the direction of the monarchy for years to come. To understand the tension now, you have to go back. Camilla's place within the royal family was never simple. It was never easy. When she married Charles in 2005, the public was given a very clear impression. She would not one day be known as queen. Instead, the title set before the public was princess consort. It was presented almost like a line that would not be crossed, a compromise carefully designed to calm a public still deeply shaped by the memory of Princess Diana. And that was no small detail. It was not an offhand choice of wording. It was part of a deliberate effort to manage emotion, expectation, and public trust. At that time, the monarchy understood the ground beneath it was delicate. Another misstep could have triggered a backlash it could not afford. Camilla's path toward acceptance had to be gradual, quiet, patient, earned over years rather than claimed in a single moment. And although she did gain a degree of respect over time through steady service and visible loyalty, full acceptance never entirely arrived. There was always a shadow lingering behind the title. Then came 2022, and with it, everything changed. After the death of Queen Elizabeth II, Charles became king. In the same moment, Camilla moved upward too, taking on the role of queen consort. The shift happened quickly, almost with a kind of inevitability. Overnight, what once looked like a hard boundary now appeared softer, more flexible, almost rewritten. The palace positioned the transition as natural continuity. It pointed to the late queen's wishes. It spoke the language of stability and respect. But for many watching from the outside, something didn't quite sit right. The promise the public thought it understood seemed to have been quietly revised. Camilla had reached the position that once seemed unlikely, perhaps even impossible. But a title alone is never the whole story in royal life. The real question was harder, and far more important. Did becoming queen also mean gaining real power? According to a number of reports and insider accounts, the answer may be far less straightforward than the title suggests. Though Camilla now wears the crown of status, there are indications that her influence behind closed doors has not matched the grandeur of that role. Some of the monarchy's most significant decisions, especially those tied to long-term planning, key charitable patronages, and the institution's future direction, have reportedly unfolded without her playing a central part. It is as though she has the symbolism of power, while the inner machinery keeps turning somewhere just beyond her reach. And in a royal system built on layers of protocol, hierarchy, and carefully guarded access, that difference matters enormously, more than most people realize. At the very same time, another presence inside the monarchy has been growing with remarkable steadiness. Catherine, Princess of Wales, has not risen through spectacle. She has not needed chaos to command attention. While other royals have often been surrounded by noise, drama, and controversy, Catherine has built her position in an entirely different way. Slowly, carefully, consistently. That may not sound flashy, but inside an institution as cautious as the monarchy, it can be incredibly powerful. Her work, particularly in early childhood development, helped define that transformation. This was not just a collection of ribbon cuttings and smiling photo opportunities. Catherine went deeper. She engaged with academics, specialists, researchers, and policy experts. She shaped a role that carried substance as well as visibility. In doing so, she began to stand out not merely as a royal figure, but as someone intent on giving real weight to the position she holds. And that did not go unnoticed. Inside an institution under growing pressure to prove its relevance in a fast-changing world, Catherine's approach offered something valuable: credibility. She looked modern without seeming performative, serious without becoming distant, public without becoming overexposed. It was a balance few managed to strike. But what happened next changed everything. In 2024, Catherine revealed publicly that she had been diagnosed with cancer following major surgery. The announcement stunned people around the world. It was one of those moments when the carefully controlled rhythm of royal life suddenly gave way to something raw and deeply human. Yet the true significance did not lie only in the announcement itself. It was in the response that followed. The public reaction was immediate, emotional, and overwhelming. This was not merely polite sympathy. It was something more personal, more profound. Messages of support flooded in from every direction. There was grief, hope, affection, and a level of emotional connection that the royal family had not inspired on such a scale in years. For many, it awakened memories of a bond once associated with Princess Diana. And within the royal story, that comparison carries extraordinary weight. Catherine's handling of the moment only deepened that connection. She did not turn the announcement into spectacle. She did not reveal more than necessary. She acknowledged the truth with grace, focused attention on her family, and especially on protecting her children. There was honesty, but also restraint, vulnerability, but never loss of composure. That balance resonated powerfully with the public. And according to reports, it resonated inside the palace too. Because at the same time Catherine was facing her own health battle, King Charles was also dealing with serious health concerns. Suddenly, the conversation inside royal circles was no longer abstract. Stability was no longer just a ceremonial concept. The future felt closer, more urgent, and far less theoretical than before. It was in that atmosphere that whispers of changing internal dynamics began to grow louder. By 2025, seasoned royal observers and palace insiders were beginning to point to signs that influence inside the monarchy was quietly being redistributed. Catherine, they said, was being welcomed into advisory spaces once reserved for the most senior figures, including the king and queen. Key patronages, the kind that shape a royal's profile and long-term authority, were reportedly being redirected toward her. These were not cosmetic changes, they were structural ones. And for Camilla, if the reports are to be believed, the message was impossible to miss. Something inside the palace was shifting. The visible order remained intact. The public image stayed composed. But beneath that polished surface, a different story was unfolding. And Camilla, it seems, knew it. As these quiet signs began to accumulate, Camilla reportedly came to a sobering realization. Her title may have been secure, but her influence might not be. And that distinction in royal life can change everything. According to reports circulating among royal insiders, she responded in a way that was both rare and telling. Camilla is said to have asked for something formal, something written, a guarantee. A guarantee, not a vague assurance, not a private understanding, but a documented commitment spelling out her position, her duties, and the permanence of her standing within the institution. That kind of request is almost unheard of in royal circles. The monarchy has long operated on custom, precedent, private understandings, and the invisible weight of tradition. So for a senior figure to ask for a written guarantee suggests something far more serious than everyday palace maneuvering. It hints at unease, at uncertainty, at the sense that informal promises were no longer enough. And then came the response. If the reports are accurate, the answer from the palace was direct and unwavering. No written guarantee would be given. The reason, at least officially, was the need for flexibility. The monarchy, after all, survives by adapting. It has to respond to changing public attitudes, unexpected crises, and the pressures of a world that no longer accepts inherited authority without question. Fixing roles too rigidly, the logic went, would limit that ability. On paper, the explanation makes sense. It fits the monarchy's long history of staying alive by staying flexible. But beneath that reasoning was a message that could not be ignored. Nothing is permanent, nothing is beyond review, and no one, regardless of title, is immune from recalibration. For Camilla, that must have landed heavily. Because if her role could not be secured in writing, then perhaps she was being reminded of a deeper truth. She had reached the summit in title, but perhaps not in lasting institutional control. The crown may rest visibly on her head, but the real architecture of the monarchy could still shift beneath her, and to understand why, you have to look closely at King Charles's broader vision. Since becoming king, Charles has made one theme clear again and again. He wants a monarchy that is leaner, more modern, and more focused. The old model, with a wider circle of working royals carrying out duties across countless causes, no longer fits the age. The public expects efficiency, relevance, clear purpose. Charles appears to understand that survival now depends not just on ceremony, but on impact. Within that design, two figures stand out almost immediately: William and Catherine. They embody a combination the institution desperately needs. They represent continuity, because they are the future line of succession. But they also represent change, because they are viewed as more relatable, more accessible, and more in tune with the emotional expectations of a modern audience. That balance is incredibly valuable. More importantly, they carry a level of public trust the monarchy cannot afford to lose. And among the two of them, Catherine's role has become especially significant. There are growing suggestions that Charles has not simply approved of her rise from a distance, but actively supported it. Reports indicate he has taken a hands-on role in helping shape her development inside the institution. That includes everything from refining major speeches to opening doors, encouraging strategic visibility, helping place her in positions that strengthen her authority. So, that is not passive support, that is investment. It is a signal that he sees her not merely as William's wife or a future queen in waiting, but as someone essential to the monarchy's present stability. And that is where the deeper tension begins. Because no modern story inside the royal family can be separated from the enduring ghost of Princess Diana. Decades after her death, her influence remains astonishingly powerful. She is still the emotional benchmark by which members of the royal family are measured. She symbolizes compassion, vulnerability, human warmth, and a kind of authenticity that monarchy often struggles to project on its own. To be compared to Diana, even indirectly, is no small thing. It can elevate someone almost instantly in the public imagination. Catherine, whether by design or by instinct, has come to evoke parts of that legacy, not as an imitation, but through certain qualities people recognize immediately. Calm presence, empathy, restraint, and an ability to create connection without seeming to demand it. She appears poised, but not cold, regal, but not unreachable. And in moments of difficulty, she has shown a kind of composure that deepens rather than weakens public feeling toward her. That matters more than ever, because public affection is no longer optional for the monarchy. It is strategic capital. For Camilla, however, this creates an almost impossible contrast. She has spent years rebuilding her image, weathering criticism, and gradually earning a degree of respect through loyalty and service. That journey has been long and undeniably difficult. But respect is not the same as emotional attachment. And emotional attachment is the currency that now seems to matter most. No matter how much Camilla's standing improved over time, she remains connected in the public memory to one of the most painful chapters in modern royal history. That connection never fully disappears. It lingers beneath the surface, shaping perception even when not spoken aloud. So while she may be accepted in her role, she has never inspired the same emotional current that follows Catherine. Inside a monarchy increasingly shaped by public feeling, that difference is no longer minor, it is decisive. And that is why the reported shift from Camilla toward Catherine is about far more than personal preference or private rivalry. It appears to reflect a larger institutional calculation. The monarchy may be adjusting its center of gravity toward the figure who can best secure its future in the eyes of the public. That is a difficult truth, especially in a family where symbolism matters so deeply. For Camilla, the situation is layered with irony. Her path into the monarchy was one of the most difficult in recent royal history. She moved from scandal to acceptance, from criticism to recognition, from being viewed as an outsider to standing beside the king as queen. That journey alone would have been enough to define a lifetime. But now, just as that hard-won place seemed fully established, it may be changing again, quietly, subtly, almost invisibly. There are no dramatic confrontations, no official acknowledgments, no palace memo admitting that influence is being redirected. But that does not make it any less real. For Catherine, meanwhile, the rising expectations bring both promise and pressure. More influence means more responsibility. More trust means more scrutiny. The same qualities that make her so valuable to the monarchy also place her under an even brighter spotlight. Every decision matters. Every appearance is read for meaning. Every silence is analyzed. She is not simply inheriting a role. She is being shaped by it in real time. What we may be witnessing then is not a sudden upheaval, but a slow and deliberate realignment. That is how monarchy tends to move. Not in loud declarations, but through subtle repositioning. Through access, visibility, patronages, introductions, and carefully measured steps that only reveal their full meaning when seen together. And that may be exactly what is happening now. What looks from the outside like minor adjustments could, in fact, be laying the foundation for the monarchy's next era. A quiet transfer of influence today could become the structural reality of tomorrow. The institution has always survived by evolving before the public fully notices. But when the shift becomes visible, even in fragments, it tells us something important. It tells us the future is already being shaped. Whether that future will make the monarchy stronger or expose new fractures is still unclear. As always, the truth likely lies somewhere between the palace's official calm and the reports circulating beyond its walls. But one thing is becoming impossible to dismiss. The balance of power inside the royal family is moving, and the first signs of that movement are now beginning to surface. But that is only the beginning of the story.